Hello, Dad. So today's video is going to be called The Gold Coast Titans and Crumpets. What is the connection? And you're the man with the answer, so let's hear it.
Back in the early 50s, there was a crumpet factory just off Fitzmaurice Street in Wagga, and behind that factory was a man called Chick Kelly. And Chick Kelly was the husband of my cousin Lila, the daughter of my father. The daughter of my father's brother. Hang on, wrong. My father's sister was Lila. That's it. My father's sister was Lila. It was his younger sister. Now, Chick Kelly, the husband, he had the biggest range, or the biggest ovens I've ever seen. They were flat tops, and they were probably 30 metres long by maybe 20 metres across. All these different flat tops, probably 40 of them, and he produced all the crumpets for New South Wales. He sold them all over New South Wales.
Was it his invention, the crumpet, or was it a crumpet something that was known around the world, but he was the largest supplier of them in New South Wales, or the only supplier?
Well, he was the only supplier, but he didn't invent the crumpet. He just, I don't know, it was just such a massive business.
Yep.
And he'd be up early in the morning, and there's lots to go on with about crumpets, but I'd rather go on with the connection with the Gold Coast Titans. Chick Kelly had, I think, 3 children, but the one I knew best was Darryl. Now, Darryl Kelly, I only knew as a 5 or 6 year old, and the others were younger, of course. And
how old were you when you knew him as a 5 or 6 year old?
Maybe 11.
Okay.
Perhaps younger, 10, 11. And Chick finally sold out to, I think it was Big Top. Sorry, it was the Big Top, the
Tip Top?
Tip Top, with the sandwich, the bread people. He sold out to them eventually, and I think they closed that factory down and just took it all to Sydney, all the makings to Sydney. But along the way, when I was going to school, the big sports competition in town for school children was what was known as the Scotch Shield. And this was where our school had 300 children from 3rd grade right up to leaving certificate, which was the last year, and the high school had many thousands. So whenever the Christian Brothers, it was a 3-game series every year. It had gone on for something like 100 years, and when I finally played, we were dead even. It was sort of 50-50-50.
What are you talking about?
The Scotch Shield was rugby league.
Yeah. What do you mean by dead even, though?
For 100 years, the brothers had won for 50 years. The high school had won for 50 years, and it always seemed to happen that.
So the brothers were teachers?
No, the brothers were school kids.
Oh, but they were private school, and it was private school versus public school.
Yes.
For a shield.
Yes, for a shield, and the high school had just literally hundreds and hundreds of rugby league players to choose from, whereas our school would have to go down. They get maybe 7 or 8 out of the leaving year, 3 or 4 out of 4th year, and the rest had come from lower years. One famous player was Teddy Ovens, who played at the age of 11 and was playing 1st grade for the Wagga Kangaroos at 15, and he played with Greg Haywick. But
who's Greg Haywick?
Greg Haywick was an international from South Sydney. He came down to coach the Wagga Kangaroos, and he continued to be an international. for a couple of years after he came to Wagga.
I feel like we've gone a long way off the story about Crumpets.
I know
Okay,
we're still talking about Crumpets and Rugby League and the Titans.
okay.
Now, I mentioned the Scotch Shield because Darryl went on to become the captain of the high school.
Gotcha.
He went further on to become part owner of the Titans. So
He's the half owner with this.
with and a lady, I think.
Yeah.
Dalziel or Friesel or something. But Darryl, we know, was part owner. He still is part owner. So Darryl grew up from the land of the Crumpet to being part owner of the Titans, which is quite a success story. And when he played Scotch Hill, I believe the high school had significant strength that year. So I believe he must have been a very good player.
Yeah, right. Last week you were in Wagga and you ate somewhere. Was it on Baylor Street, Wagga?
No, it was on the Sturt Highway. The Sturt Highway is a connection with Kringle Road, Lake Albert Road, and it's I can't think of the name. I don't think it has the suburb has a name. It might be Copeland, that suburb.
But that's his parents' restaurant or his restaurant?
No, he owned that restaurant before he became the owner of the Titans.
And he doesn't own it anymore, or
I don't think
you don't
he
know?
does. I don't think he does, but it's a wonderful hotel, and it's got significant history because I can remember my grandfather and father would go up to that hotel, which was called the Farmer's Rest. It's always been known as the Farmer's Rest, and he would take me up there and it wasn't Darryl's or it wasn't Chris's, it wasn't Chick's hotel. I don't know who it belonged to, but they would tether their sulky up on the Sturt side of the hotel, and
Who would tether their sulky up?
my grandfather would.
Yes.
And then he'd go inside. I'd be sitting in the sulky, and he'd bring me out a whiskey. This whiskey just happened to be red cordial with soda water in it.
Yeah.
And I was convinced, of course, at that age that I was drinking drinking whiskey.
Yes, you convinced me of that as a kid too. We'd go to the pub, you'd have a beer, and you'd say to me, "What do you want?" I'd say a whiskey, because you taught me that, and I'd had the grenadine and whatever before, and somehow you'd always communicate with the bartender what it was without me hearing. And so there were times I'd turn up and ask for whiskey and they didn't know what I wanted, and if you weren't there, they wouldn't know what I wanted. I didn't know what was going on.
No, so the Titans have a connection with Wagga. The connection is Darryl Kelly, and Darryl Kelly must have been a fairly significant player in his day, I'd say.
Yeah, right. Now, your sister Mel, is she older or younger than you?
She's 4 years younger than me, and she has more contact with Darryl than I haven't seen Darryl since he was, what, 3, 4, 5, or something like that.
Yeah, because she lives on the Gold Coast, and I can't help feeling I've heard her talk about him in terms of that she goes and sees him, her and her husband Bob, go and visit him and even go to games or something. I don't know. They do something or go to dinner with him, or I don't know what it is, but yeah.
Yeah, I was quite surprised because this time I went to Wagga, I forget how old I was, Darryl's name was splashed all over the Wagga Advertiser as the captain of the Wagga High School. And I thought, oh, that's fun.
Yeah, right. Okay, well, is there anything else about this story? Or do you want to leave this story here because we've got so many of them?
That's probably it.
Yeah, right. Okay, well, there you go, people. Now you know what the connection between Crumpets and the Gold Coast Titans is. Thanks, Dad.